The United States built a digital blockade to starve China of AI power. It was supposed to be impenetrable. But today, that blockade has a massive hole in it. Federal prosecutors just revealed a staggering breach. They say advanced Nvidia-based servers, the literal engines of the AI revolution, have been flowing into China anyway. The root? A shadow pipeline through Taiwan and Southeast Asia. This isn't just a smuggling case. It's a systemic collapse of America's strategic containment. The details breaking on March 20th are explosive. U.S. authorities have indicted Yih-Shyan Wally Liaw, a co-founder of Supermicro, alongside 2 others. The charge? Orchestrating a massive scheme to divert high-end Nvidia hardware straight into Chinese hands. We're not talking about a few missing boxes. We're talking about a $2.5 billion betrayal. Over $500 million in servers have reportedly already crossed the border. And here is the part Washington doesn't want you to realize. This isn't about software or code, it's about the physical racks. The silicon, the raw compute, the hardware that turns data into global dominance. If America can't control the flow of its own machines through Taiwan and Southeast Asia, then the AI arms race is already over. The real question isn't how big this case is. The real question is, who else is selling the future?
The story broke around March 19th and 20th, 2026. U.S. authorities accused Yih-Shyan Wally Liaw, a co-founder of Supermicro, along with 2 others, of participating in a scheme to divert advanced servers with Nvidia chips towards China. According to the allegations, the order flow may have reached as high as $2.5 billion, with at least $510 million effectively diverted. And here's why that matters. This is not about a few boxes disappearing off a loading dock. These are the physical engines of artificial intelligence. The servers, the racks, the compute, the hardware that turns code into power. So the real question is not whether one case is big. The real question is this: what happens when America's China strategy depends on controlling hardware flows across Taiwan, Southeast Asia, and a global supply chain full of loopholes? Let's get one thing straight. AI is not floating in the cloud. It is grounded in geography, electricity, steel, ports, fabs, and server racks. Every serious AI model eventually hits the same hard wall: compute. And compute is not abstract. It lives in chips, memory, cooling systems, power distribution equipment, and entire server assemblies. That means whoever controls the hardware pipeline controls the speed of AI deployment. That is why U.S. export controls matter so much. Since 2022, Washington has been tightening restrictions designed to keep the most advanced AI-enabling chips and systems out of Chinese hands. Those controls were hardened again in 2023, widened in 2024, and tightened further in 2025. The strategic logic was simple. If China cannot reliably access the high-end AI hardware, it cannot scale frontier AI as fast, as cheaply, or as broadly. And Nvidia itself had already been warning investors and regulators that U.S. restrictions on China were directly affecting AI products and data center systems. In other words, everybody serious understood what was at stake. Now here's where it gets physical. Taiwan sits at the center of the advanced semiconductor world, not just because of manufacturing, but because it is embedded in the commercial, logistical, and organizational DNA of the AI hardware ecosystem. Then you have Southeast Asia, not as the heart of chip design, but as a perfect gray zone for routing, assembly, transshipment, relabeling, and intermediary trade relationships. It is close enough, connected enough, and commercially dense enough to become the ideal pressure valve in any sanctions or export control regime. And that creates the real strategic problem. America may write the rules in Washington, but the hardware moves through ports, warehouses, distributors, shell companies, and intermediary jurisdictions thousands of miles away. The map matters more than the memo. This is bigger than one indictment. The United States and China are no longer just competing in technology. They are competing over industrial acceleration, over who gets to deploy AI into military planning, surveillance systems, manufacturing automation, cyber operations, biotech research, and autonomous decision support first. For Washington, export controls were supposed to buy time, not total victory, not permanent denial, time. Time for the U.S. to expand domestic capacity, time for American allies to align, time for data center infrastructure in the U.S. to scale faster than China's, time for China's AI sector to hit friction. But here's the flaw nobody likes to say out loud. Export controls are only as strong as the weakest commercial handoff in the chain. And if prosecutors are right, then the alleged scheme shows exactly how that weakness works. Not by some dramatic theft from a spy movie, not by hackers breaking into a vault, but through something much more dangerous: commercial normalcy. Orders, shipments, intermediaries, jurisdictional complexity. The kind of bureaucracy that lets strategic leakage hide inside ordinary business flows. That is why this story is so important for an American audience, because it suggests the U.S. may not be fighting a simple us versus them technology race. It may be fighting a much uglier battle, a race against its own dependence on globally distributed supply chains. And that takes us to the core contradiction. America wants to deny China access to advanced AI hardware, but the AI hardware ecosystem itself was built in an era optimized for efficiency, not strategic denial. Efficiency says, use the fastest route, the cheapest assembler, the most convenient distributor, the most integrated network across Asia. National security says, lock it down, trace it, verify it, and choke off access. Those two logics are now colliding. And China's opportunity sits exactly in that collision, because Beijing doesn't need to fully defeat U.S. export controls. It only needs to degrade them enough to keep acquiring meaningful quantities of high-performance hardware through alternative channels. That's the point. Leakage at scale is not a rounding error. Leakage at scale is strategy failure. Now let's bring this back home. Most Americans hear export controls and think this is some distant bureaucratic fight between lawyers, diplomats, and chip executives. It's not. This hits your electric bill, your retirement account, your job market, and the future geography of American industry. First, the electricity issue. AI is pushing a historic build-out of U.S. data center infrastructure. That means more power demand, more strain on transmission, more pressure on utilities, and more investment in generation, from gas to nuclear to grid upgrades. Why is Washington willing to absorb that cost? Because the strategic assumption is that advanced compute concentration inside the United States gives America an edge. But if advanced AI hardware still leaks to China in major quantities, then Americans may end up paying the infrastructure cost of an AI arms race without getting the full strategic advantage they were promised. Second, the market issue. Nvidia, server manufacturers, cloud players, utilities, REITs, and infrastructure suppliers all sit inside a giant AI capital cycle. If export controls are strong, investors assume America is shaping the battlefield. If those controls prove porous, the risk picture changes. That doesn't automatically mean the AI boom disappears. It means the geopolitical premium attached to U.S. leadership becomes less secure. And that matters for portfolios, for pensions, for 401ks, because a lot of American wealth is now indirectly tied to the belief that the U.S. remains the central safe zone for AI scale. Third, the jobs and industrial geography issue. Washington is trying to pull more semiconductor and AI infrastructure into the United States, places like Arizona, Texas, and the broader American South. The pitch is simple: build here, power here, employ here, secure here. But if the enforcement regime around export controls fails, then the domestic political case gets harder. Why should Americans subsidize reshoring, tolerate giant power-hungry data centers and absorb local infrastructure stress if the high-end hardware still finds workarounds overseas. That's the pocketbook problem. This story isn't just about China getting servers, it's about whether the American public gets the strategic return on the industrial cost it's already starting to absorb. So here's my prediction. If these allegations hold up, Washington won't treat this as an isolated criminal case. It will treat it as proof that the current export control regime is too dependent on trust-based commercial routing across Asia. That means the next phase is likely to be harsher. More end-user scrutiny, more pressure on distributors and assemblers, more rules on complete server systems, not just chips, more forensic tracking of where AI hardware actually ends up, and more diplomatic pressure on transshipment hubs in Taiwan-linked and Southeast Asian networks. But here's the deeper consequence. America started this fight thinking it was writing technology policy. What it's actually writing is a new map of trusted industrial space. Places that are inside the secure AI zone will get capital, infrastructure, and political backing. Places seen as leakage corridors will face growing suspicion and pressure. And that means AI is no longer just a software story. It's becoming a geography story, a power grid story, a shipping lane story, a manufacturing story, and yes, a national survival story. Because in the end, frontier AI is not controlled by whoever writes the best model. It's controlled by whoever can secure the physical systems that make those models possible. And if America can't keep its most advanced AI hardware out of China, even after years of tightening restrictions, then the problem is bigger than enforcement. The problem is that the United States is trying to run a containment strategy on top of a supply chain that was never built for containment in the first place. That's the part nobody should ignore.